There we go. Um, were as much as they've tried to prepare you for the fandom that is the Bridgerton fans, were you accurately prepared for the onslaught of feedback and love that you got from the fans when it was announced that you joined the Bridgerton series?
No, not at all. I think the only way that I could describe it, and this is a really weird way of describing it, was a lot of my friends recently actually have just had babies for the first time, and they were like, nothing can prepare you until you actually have a baby and you experience it and everything that comes with it. And that was the only way. It's a funny analogy, but when I was doing press for the show before it premiered, a lot of journalists would very kindly say, "Oh, are you ready for this exciting time?" Even Johnny Bailey, who was my co-star, and he'd obviously done one season of it, was like, "Oh, are you prepared for everything that's going to happen when it comes out?" And you hear all these things and you trust it, but going back to my baby analogy, only until it actually happens, you can really understand, what it's all about and how much the fans really love this show and love the character of Kate. It's been very overwhelming in the best way possible. And everyone's been very warm, very positive. And a lot of young Indian women, especially, are so excited and feel very seen. So, yeah, to answer your question, no, I wasn't prepared at all. And it's been the most wonderful experience. And I'm very, very grateful for the love that people have shown for this character and for this show. Yeah.
Has it gotten to a point where fans will bring up such specific parts of the show that you couldn't possibly know how to answer it? So you have to come up with something on the fly because these fans know everything about the Bridgerton series.
Yes. Yeah. No, I don't think so, because I think the way that I've approached the character in this show, and collectively all of us as a cast and crew, and Chris Van Dusen, our showrunner, we would never do anything just for the sake of it or for performative reasons. We always wanted to find out the truth beneath these characters and these relationships. And I think it's very important for a series like this that is set in the 18th century and is so far removed to what we're experiencing in modern day. I think it's in anything that I approach, I always like to fully understand why these characters are making these decisions or choices or on these journeys that we follow them on. But no, the fans are, you're right, they know everything about this show and this world. And it's been very gratifying in the sense, even the little details that we put in that we thought were private choices between myself and Johnny for our characters and their relationship, fans pick up on it. And for example, we always thought that Kate and Anthony had a way of communicating with their hands in a society where touch was so restricted between a woman and a man. When the touch barrier is broken between them, we always had them brushing their fingers or shots with them touching hands or communicating this tension between them. And there were loads of subtle moments where we thought it was just a private detail between us, and not necessarily something to show to people, or for people to react off, and fans pick up on it. So no, I've never had to like make anything up on the fly, I don't think. Not yet, anyway.
What was more nerve wracking? Your first fitting for this role, costume wise, or meeting Shonda for the first time?
Good question. I think meeting Shonda for the first time, very honestly. The fittings, it's a very safe and intimate space where we can have a slight detachment from what's going on set. And it's an environment where we can discuss what the character's wearing, where she is in her journey, all of those things. It's a part of the process. Meeting Shonda for the first time was very weird because obviously for 11 months I was filming on her show, reading her scripts, reading everything that she's approved of, and spoken with her a few times via Zoom. And then, yeah, she came to London for the premiere, and I remember standing next to her on the red carpet, and that was the first time meeting her. And yeah, that was nerve wracking, only because, all hail Shonda. She is the queen of this series, I guess. So yeah, it was nerve wracking to be there in the flesh with her, and just hope that we've we've done her vision justice, which I think we have. And yeah, but also it was an honor to meet with her as well and to be working with her.
But I have to imagine that in terms of the fitting, her your character's outfits change ever so slightly through the season as we get closer and closer to that moment. Was that a deliberate decision on the team's part, or was that something you came up with? Could you enlighten us?
It was a bit of a creative collaboration, but the credit I think mainly goes to our amazing costume team. It was definitely a conscious choice, and it made so much sense to what I was putting forward with the portrayal of Kate, a woman who is incredibly independent and self-realized and knows herself, and is very focused on her objective of marrying off her sister and not to find a love for herself. And so when we first meet her, she's in very muted jewel tone colors. She's very conservative. Her hair's scraped back because she's on a mission. She's focused. There's a lot of parallels to how she is to Lady Danbury. She's not wearing much makeup. And that really influenced my choices for the character, especially in the first half of the series. And then we see this beautiful change in her as she starts surrendering to the thought of love and the feeling of love and her encounters with Anthony, and she softens, and you slowly see her wearing a bit more makeup. Her hair softens and falls in front of her face. She wears brighter colors, and she's more romantic in that sense. And it was a very quick process for me, auditioning for the role, getting the role, and then being in makeup tests and wig fittings and costume fittings. So it was a very helpful conversation and really amazing process in that sense for both the character and the costume team. Yeah, and I had a say in like the Indian influences that I wanted to incorporate with the character, and also we explored different levels of how conservative Kate went, and we didn't want her to necessarily look like a mother or be seen as like an old maid in Bridgerton terms. I still wanted the world to see this young, feisty, sporty, full of life woman, and to accentuate her youth in that sense. So yeah, it was definitely a conscious choice.
Now, everybody likes to point out your scenes with Anthony in the series, and they're great. Don't get me wrong. Okay, I know that's what everybody's there for. But I'm a particular fan of you clashing with Lady Danbury. I mean, you guys had some barbs with each other that made me laugh out loud. Now, were those worked out, or were they on sort of on the fly? Because you're dealing with a veteran actress there who's been around and knows a few things about cutting words, if you will. Did you guys talk about that, or was that just in the script?
Yes, absolutely. Adjoa and she was incredible to work with. We had various phone calls discussing the history of our characters and how I think a lot of these encounters, especially with Kate and Anthony, Kate and Edwina, and Kate and Lady Danbury, they're very stars aligned. And I think Kate encounters a lot of people and women, men and women in the show that she finds parallels within, and Lady Danbury is one of them. So I was very curious to hear more about Adjoa's approach to Lady Danbury. She's obviously done the first season of Bridgerton, so she has a bit more experience and more of an educated opinion in that sense. And Kate very much is like a young Lady Danbury in that sense. And I think what was so amazing about these scenes is Kate is seen as very strong and feisty and opinionated and isn't afraid to speak her mind or keep herself to herself amongst this ton. But with Lady Danbury, she's incredibly vulnerable and she kind of meets her match. So yeah, and also Adjoa being a dark-skinned Black woman and myself being a dark-skinned Indian woman. I remember we filmed one of the scenes in episode 1, and it was when Lady Danbury kind of grills Kate as to why she's actually in London, what's her secret here. And there's that whole speech Kate gives about how her and her sister have had to work twice as hard to get to where they are now. And I remember Adjoa looking at me in between takes and saying, we're doing this for the people, because there's so much truth in what we're saying here. And I'll always remember that. So yeah, it wasn't on the fly at all. That was a very thoughtful process, working with Adjoa. And it's such a subtle relationship that we see, but it's also so powerful, the scenes between them. And I don't think Kate's journey would have been what it is without the influence of Lady Danbury. So yeah.
So I mean, I'm not overstating things, so let me just put it out there.
Okay.
You have the pressure of portraying an independent woman during the time of the Bridgertons takes place, Kate, okay? You have the pressure of doing a great job with a character a lot of people are already invested in from the Bridgerton fandom. That's part of this as well. Also, you have this other element about portraying a protagonist, a female Indian woman in this lead as well. I mean, you have all these layers of pressure, rolled up into one. I think I'd go home and be in the fetal position every night after filming, because I don't know how you would have survived it, because that's a lot. Because if for some reason you drop the ball on some part, and by the way, you don't, you're fantastic in the series, but you've probably heard that already. But if you drop the ball, they're going to be like, oh, it's this reason, this reason, and this reason. They're going to point to all those things. So, I mean, how did you handle the pressure of all this during filming?
I think it was an equation of different things. One being getting the role. It was such a fast process for me. Within 2 weeks, day 1, I was auditioning. Day 14, it was announced to the world, and I was in rehearsals. So that kept me very out of my head, and I didn't have months of pre-production to kind of overstew it and overthink everything. I was very much in my body, out of my head, on set. And also, one of the biggest things was my amazing working chemistry that I discovered with Johnny. It gave us so much confidence on how we were going to do this, because it was effortless when we worked together. I think we're both very generous actors, and we had very parallel mindsets on what we wanted to bring to this relationship between Kate and Anthony. And that helped really alleviate any pressure and any sense of trying. We didn't have to try, it was effortless. And so that gave me a lot of confidence. And then also, it was a communal effort between the crew and the cast and Chris Van Dusen, and everyone held the energy. Everyone was so enthusiastic to make this love story as amazing as it is when we're in the read-throughs together or when we're in rehearsals, because I think it is such a special, beautiful love story. One, since watching relationships like Jack and Rose and the Titanic, that kind of two people that are just worlds apart but are so meant to be together. And I think I was just so out of my head. And to be honest, I only started feeling the pressure. And this is speaking very honestly, this was a journey that I found myself on when I was doing press for the show, and when the show was released and premiered and then handed off to the world. I think as an artist, I was very confident in what we achieved and what we brought to the table for this love story. But, it would be naive of me to think I'm just an actress. I am somewhat of a political statement as a dark-skinned Indian woman, as the romantic lead. And that was a sense of pressure of representing and understanding and owning my voice for young women that looked like me, or young women and the fandom. And that was a journey that I found myself on. And there was pressure there, because I really had to learn who I was and what I wanted to do with this platform and my voice. And I think I'd like to say I'm in a place now where I don't feel pressure, and I get it now, and I understand the magic of what we can do with a show like this, and how much it means to people to be seen or to relate or to have their imagination sparked by such a romantic story. So yeah, very honestly, I didn't feel that pressure whilst we were filming. I was so engrossed in working with Johnny and the rest of the cast, but particularly with Johnny, bringing this love story to life. And I think we just got very lucky that we worked so well together. and we were so taken care of. I had an incredible accent coach with me, making sure that we stayed true to having that slight Indian accent. And it was just more and more and more. Every episode that we got, there was something else that was so exciting or so groundbreaking to what we see on screen. So yeah, I guess that's the answer to the question. It's been a journey for sure. And I only hope that, I can fill the shoes of more roles where not just as a romantic lead, looking like how I am as a woman in this industry, but also, to represent women in an action film or whatever it might be, or something else, or a musical, or a different kind of role. I think I fully understand that now, and it's a different kind of pressure. If anything, it just motivates me to keep working harder. So, yeah.
Is this the most fulfilled you've been in a project?
Yeah, I think so. It was very fulfilling. I mean, it was very special. It was 11 months of filming back to back. And so it was a whole year basically dedicated to this project. And like I said, the working relationship that Johnny and I had was very special, and this love story is incredibly special. So yeah, I got to live out like a romantic fairy tale. So it was the stuff of dreams in that sense. And yeah, I felt incredibly fulfilled and walked away from that 11 months of filming really satisfied and just so excited to share it with the world. Yeah.
Now, there's of course two questions that are burning on people's minds. Number one, it's not necessarily one that would come from me. And there's one, the next one will definitely be my question. The first one would be, did you keep the tiaras?
I didn't keep the tiaras. No, I didn't keep the tiaras. If there was anything that I wanted to keep, we had to keep them for season 3, but I do want to keep a few of my corsets because they were just so beautifully made, and perhaps a pair of my gloves. Yeah.
Will we be seeing you in season 4?
Season 4, I don't know. Season 3, yes. Season 4.
Okay, I know. I'm pretty sure. I was pretty sure season 3 was already kind of known. I was trying to see if you were going to be trying to see if I could get something there. Now on to the question I want to know. Now, I'm not into the tiara thing, so to speak.
Okay.
What was the hardest moment during filming for you in terms of a scene or a sequence you had to go through that where you really had to take it to the next level because you knew you had to nail this particular moment, or perhaps everything would be flat or everything would be lost for this particular episode?
I can think of 2, 3 actually, but I'll say 2 of them. One being there was a scene at the end of episode 5, I believe, where it's a pivot because there's that point where Edwina's starting to discover more about Kate's secret, and her marriage is on very thin ice. And Kate and Anthony's relationship is really developing, and that the tension between them and that longing between them has really developed. And Kate feels very torn between her head and her heart, or her heart and her heart, because she wants to serve her sister and she wants to serve following her own love. And she confronts Anthony, and she does the thing that she doesn't actually want to do, and tells him to go and marry her sister and to fulfill this engagement. And I remember we shot that at the end of the day. We only had like an hour or an hour and a half after horse riding all day. And yeah, I had to convey a certain emotion to show the stakes, to show that we are in the middle of the series and this is a pivot for Kate, and to show her vulnerability. We meet her as quite an independent, fierce, strong, hard woman. But obviously a character like that, I think, still waters run deep. She's incredibly vulnerable, and she's incredibly soft and has a big heart, and is slightly misunderstood in that sense. So yeah, I would say that scene at the end of episode 5, and also I think that even the subtle scenes between Lady Danbury and Edwina, where it was just a very sisterly, intimate moment, or a confrontation between Lady Danbury, um, I would say the stakes were less high in those scenes, and maybe it wasn't like very loud emotion, but I think there's so much power within the subtlety in that, and it all adds up together. So yeah, I would say the main one, end of episode 5, and there's obviously always going to be other little intricacies where I was like, this scene means so much to me.